I wasn't supposed to be there. That thought played over and over in my head, like a scratch skipping on an old record. I wasn't supposed to see it. If I had followed my usual routine, coffee near the office, quick scan of the news, drive straight to work, I would have missed it completely. I would have gone through my day like normal, checking in on emails, maybe texting Haley something stupid and sweet about what to grab for dinner. I wouldn't have known. But I did know now, because I turned left instead of right, because I got a craving for the oat milk latte at that corner shop near Haley's building, because traffic was light, because I left my travel mug on the counter. It all feels so small, those tiny decisions. But it's crazy how the smallest ones open the biggest doors. The coffee shop was warm and smelled like cinnamon. I remember that. The barista wore a green beanie and scribbled a smiley face on the side of my cup. That felt weirdly significant at the time, like a cosmic joke aimed at me. I waited by the window, tapping my phone, not really seeing the screen. Then the barista called my name, Eli, and I grabbed my drink, heading for the door. And that's when I saw them. Across the sidewalk, maybe 20 feet away, in the cafe next door. A newer, trendier place Haley always said was too try-hard. Except she was sitting there, right up against the window, right where I couldn't miss her. Not alone, not working, not looking stressed, but smiling. And then I saw his hand. He was holding hers. Lightly, but not like a handshake or some coworker comfort thing. It was how I used to hold her hand when we'd split a dessert at that Italian place she liked. Fingers brushing, lingering. She didn't pull away. She didn't look around like she was worried someone might see. She leaned in, tilted her head to the side, and laughed. I froze. I don't even know if I was breathing. I took one step closer, still outside, my cup heating my fingers through the cardboard. She laughed again, louder this time. I'd know that sound anywhere. It wasn't the forced polite laugh she gave my mom when she talked too long about vitamins. It wasn't the awkward one she used at networking events. This was real, familiar, the one she used when she was completely relaxed, when she felt safe. And she was giving it to someone else. They didn't look like they were talking about spreadsheets or deadlines. No laptops, no papers. Just coffee, two phones upside down on the table, and that look. The one people get when they forget the rest of the world exists. The kind of look you only give someone who's already a part of your life. I stood there like an idiot, holding my drink, watching them, not moving. It's hard to explain the feeling. It's not quite anger. Not yet. It's more like the floor underneath you changes texture. You suddenly realize you've been standing on sand when you thought it was concrete. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough that the cup started to cool. Long enough that the whipped cream disappeared. Long enough for her to notice. She turned her head, eyes scanning the window casually, and then she saw me. Her expression didn't crack immediately. Just a flicker. The muscles around her mouth tightened, like she was forcing her smile to stay in place. She said something to him. I couldn't hear it, and then stood up and headed for the door. Calm, measured, like she'd been expecting this. Hey, she said when she reached me, tucking her hair behind her ear like she always did when she was trying to act casual. What are you doing here? I didn't answer right away. I was still trying to piece together what I'd just seen. The tone in her voice threw me, like I'd caught her grocery shopping or running into an old friend. Not like I'd seen her hand in someone else's. I was just getting coffee, I finally said. My voice came out flatter than I meant it to. She looked over her shoulder, then back at me. Oh, that's Matt. From work. He's one of the project leads on the Taylor account. He's been going through a really bad divorce. She said it like it was a math problem. A neutral statement of fact. Something no one could argue with. I'm helping him stay afloat. He's not really in a good place, she added. I just nodded. I didn't know what else to do. My brain was still back in that moment, watching her laugh at something he said. We were just talking about this pitch. It's a big deal for the team, and he's been kind of falling apart. Honestly, it's been hard watching him go through it. You know how people unravel after a marriage ends. She said that last part like she wasn't aware of the irony. Or maybe she was. He's not. She stopped, glanced behind her again. It's not what it looks like. That phrase, that god-awful phrase, it always means the opposite of what it's trying to say. I looked at her for a long time, not accusing, not questioning, just looking. She had lipstick on, a shade I didn't recognize, a color she never wore around me, and her hair was curled, like she'd gotten ready for something more than a Friday work meeting. She reached up casually and wiped the corner of her lips, then gave me a tight smile. "You okay?" she asked, like she was the one who found me standing outside a cafe with someone else's hand in mine. I swallowed. My voice didn't come back right away. I just stared at her, then down at my cup, then back at her. And something inside me, I don't know what exactly, shifted, because I'd seen her lie before. A white lie here, a smoothed over truth there. But this wasn't that. This wasn't a blur. This was clear. I saw what I saw. And for the first time in our relationship, I realized something I never wanted to believe. I didn't trust her. Not in that moment. Not even a little. I nodded once. No words. Just a nod. Then I turned and walked to my car. The coffee had gone cold by the time I made it to the parking garage. I sat in the driver's seat, not starting the engine, not turning on the radio, just staring straight ahead. Replay, rewind, zoom in, freeze. Him holding her hand, her leaning in, that laugh, and how easily she explained it away. After that morning, everything changed, but nothing looked different. That's the part that messed with me the most. You expect an affair to announce itself with fireworks or screaming or slammed doors. You imagine some dramatic discovery. A smoking G*N, a fight in the kitchen that ends with a suitcase by the door. But that's not how it was with Haley. It was quiet, subtle, clean. 1,000 little cracks that you only notice once the glass has already shattered. I started seeing the patterns after that day outside the cafe. Things that had been right in front of me but I hadn't wanted to look at closely. Things that, in isolation, meant nothing. But together they were a story. Not the one she was telling. The real one. It started with the perfume. She'd never been a heavy fragrance person. Usually just a spritz of something light. But sometime in October, she started wearing something new. Stronger. Sharper. I asked about it, half joking. She said it was a sample a coworker gave her. Kind of expensive, she added. But I like how it lingers. And it did linger. On her coat. On our pillows. In my car when she borrowed it. It stayed longer than she did. Then it was the ring. She stopped wearing it. First, it was just at the gym. It gets caught on the bar, she said. Then it was my fingers sore. And I forgot it in the bathroom. And then finally, it's somewhere in my bag. I think. I remember finding it once in the little tray where she kept her makeup brushes. Just sitting there. Alone. Like it didn't mean anything anymore. She changed the lock code on her phone around the same time. Not that I ever checked it. But I noticed. I'm not proud of how I found out. One night, she was asleep on the couch. Her phone buzzed, and I glanced at it. Just a name. M. That was it. No last name. No preview. And when I tried to open it out of sheer reflex, really, it didn't work. The code had changed. Banking update, she said when I asked. You know how they want everyone to use stronger security now? Sure. Security. Our social media started changing too. She used to post little things. Us hiking, dinner at that sushi place, our dog curled up next to her. But slowly our photos disappeared. Not all at once. A few vanished here and there. When I noticed, I asked, and she said it was to clean up her feed. What replaced them were black and white quotes. Phrases like, sometimes growth requires distance, and a woman becomes powerful the moment she stops needing permission. I'm not against people growing. I'm not threatened by independence. But these weren't just affirmations, they were messages. Written in a language she didn't speak when she was still choosing us. I told myself I was being paranoid. That's what you do when you don't want to know the truth. You rewrite reality to protect your own version of it. I chalked it up to stress. The new project at her job. The tension that had crept into our conversations. The silence over dinner. I blamed myself. But there were too many signs. We used to cook together. That was our thing. Pasta nights, taco Tuesdays, homemade pizza on Fridays. Lately, she wasn't hungry. Ate late at work. Trying intermittent fasting. Just not in the mood for carbs. And when I cooked anyway, out of habit or hope, she picked at her plate or went to shower halfway through. She started bringing her phone with her. To the bathroom. To the laundry room. To water the plants. She used to leave it wherever. On the counter. In her bag. Now it never left her side. Always face down. One night I woke up around 2 a.m. and she wasn't in bed. I found her lying on the living room floor, staring at the ceiling. No TV. No book. Just her, the dark, and something I couldn't reach. "What are you doing?" I asked, still half asleep. "Couldn't sleep," she said, like that explained everything. I sat on the edge of the couch. "You okay?" She nodded, then rolled away from me. "Just tired." But I saw it. I saw the distance in her eyes, like I was already someone she used to know, like she'd traveled somewhere far, and left me behind without even saying goodbye. That's when I started writing things down. Not in a notebook, just little notes in my phone. Times, dates, things she said that didn't line up. I told myself it wasn't spying. It was protecting myself. Preparing. Bracing. She changed her work schedule too. More late meetings. More last-minute events. She once came home after midnight on a Thursday, smelling like a bar I didn't recognize. She said it was a client mixer. "Very casual," she said. Even though she was wearing heels she hadn't worn since our anniversary. I looked at her then and asked, "Do you want to talk about anything?" She blinked. "Like what?" "Anything you've been thinking about, feeling, just us." She gave me a tired smile. "You're sweet," she said, "but I'm just overwhelmed lately. I need you to trust me." I nodded. Because I wanted to. God, I wanted to. I think part of me was still hoping I was wrong. That I'd wake up one day and realize I'd let insecurity twist my perception. That all of this was a coincidence. A bad phase. Something we'd laugh about later. But then there was the day she left her laptop open. It was innocent enough. She was showering. I needed to print something. Her screen was still on. She must have been editing a document. And when I opened a new tab, her browser suggested recent searches. One of them stood out. Hotels near lakefront with late check-in. We don't live near a lake. We hadn't gone on a trip in months. I clicked it. Then her history. There were 3 other listings for lakefront rentals. Cozy suites. One even had a jacuzzi. All for one night. Midweek. That same week she said she was working late. That same week she came home smelling like sandalwood and wine. I didn't confront her. Not right away. Instead, I scrolled further. There were also search results for how to transfer mail to new address and how to cancel shared subscriptions without notifying other person. It hit me then, sharp and cold. She wasn't just pulling away emotionally. She was making an exit plan. That night, I watched her sleep. I know that sounds weird, maybe even pathetic, but I needed to see her as she was, untouched by the lie. I wanted to memorize her, or maybe understand her. But all I saw was someone I didn't recognize. Peaceful. Unbothered. I laid awake for hours trying to put it all together. The lies. The missing pieces. The way our life had been slowly hollowed out until only the shell remained. And I wondered, how long had she been preparing for the day she'd leave? How long had she been rehearsing her version of the story? How far back did the first crack go? People think affairs start with a kiss or a hotel room or some secret message. But I think it starts way before that. In the moment someone stops choosing you. When they start rehearsing their independence in quiet ways. When they start editing you out of their future one photo at a time. I saw the signs now. Not all at once, but piece by piece. Every lie, every late night, every silence. Laid out like breadcrumbs. And I had followed them straight into the truth. I just didn't know how much worse it was going to get. She told me she was going to Chicago. Not casually, not carelessly. She told me the way someone tells the truth when they've rehearsed it enough times to believe it themselves. A management training. 3 days. Motivational speakers, leadership panels, networking dinners. She showed me the email confirmation without me asking. The flight details. The hotel booking. Everything lined up so cleanly that questioning it felt paranoid. I even helped her pack. I remember folding one of her sweaters. The gray one she always said was her favorite because it felt like home. I placed it on top of her clothes, smoothed it out, kissed her on the forehead, and told her to text me when she landed. She smiled, tight and quick, and said, "Of course." The night she left, the apartment felt hollow. Not lonely, hollow. Like the sound didn't bounce the same way. I ordered takeout, ate half of it, and left the rest on the counter. I tried to distract myself with a movie but ended up scrolling through nothing for hours. Around midnight, she sent a voice message. "Hey," she said softly. "Long day. Seminars were exhausting. The hotel coffee is awful. Miss you." Her voice sounded normal, warm, familiar. That should have comforted me. Instead, it unsettled me more than silence would have. The next evening, I decided to clean. It wasn't some symbolic thing. I just needed to do something with my hands. I wiped counters, organized drawers, stacked old mail. When I got to the media cabinet, I pulled out the tablet we used to stream movies on before upgrading. I hadn't touched it in months. I turned it on, planning to reset it. That's when her cloud account opened. She must have logged in at some point and never logged out. I stared at the screen, frozen, my finger hovering above the button to close it. I should have. I knew that. This was the line. The moment where ignorance could still be chosen. I didn't choose it. There was a new album. Automatically uploaded. No title. Just today's date. The first photo loaded slowly. A hotel room. Soft lighting. Beige walls. A king-size bed with crisp white sheets. Candles on the nightstand. A half-filled wine glass. The second photo was her. Haley, standing in front of the mirror, wearing black lingerie I had never seen before. Not something practical. Not something accidental. Something intentional. Her phone partially covered her face, but her body language said everything. Confident, relaxed, present. My hands started shaking. The third photo broke something in me I didn't know could break again. A man's hand on her waist. Familiar, casual, possessive. The angle cut off his face, but I didn't need to see it. I knew what it meant. I knew what came before and after that moment. I knew this wasn't a mistake captured by accident. This was documentation. Proof. I scrolled. The next image was a selfie. Both of them this time. Her head resting against his shoulder. His arm around her. In the background, on the chair by the window, was the gray sweater. The one I folded. The one she called her favorite. I sat down hard on the couch, the tablet slipping from my hands. My ears rang. My chest felt tight, like the air had been ket out of the room. I replayed her voice message in my head. Seminars were exhausting. Hotel coffee is awful. There were no notepads in the photos. No conference badges. No meeting rooms. Just robes. Candles. Wine. A bed that had been slept in. This wasn't a lapse. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a second life. Carefully planned. Carefully funded. Carefully hidden. I checked the timestamps. All from that day. While I was eating cold takeout. While I was pretending not to worry. While I was still trying to trust her. I didn't cry. Not then. I felt empty. Like the part of me that could still be surprised had finally shut down. I stayed there for a long time, staring at nothing, until the tablet dimmed and went dark. She called me later that night. "Hey," she said cheerfully. "How was your day?" I don't remember what I said. Something automatic. Something safe. She talked about the keynote speaker. About dinner with colleagues. About how tired she was. I listened to every word and wondered how easily it came to her. How smoothly the lie fit into her mouth. When we hung up, I sat in the dark and finally let it sink in. The woman I loved wasn't away on a trip. She was somewhere else entirely. With someone else. Living a version of herself I was never invited into. And I realized something that hurt worse than the betrayal itself. She hadn't slipped. She hadn't lost control. She had chosen this, every step of it, and she had no intention of stopping. I couldn't stop thinking about the hand in that photo. Not the one on her waist. The other one, the one holding the phone in their mirror selfie. His hand. That small, careless detail ruined every excuse she could possibly come up with. There was no "someone asked me to pose for fun," or "it was just a moment." No ambiguity left to cling to. His hand was relaxed, fingers curved like he'd done that same motion a dozen times before. It was familiar, and so was the room. A week later, I found the exact hotel on Google. I cross-referenced the curtain pattern with photos on TripAdvisor. Same layout, same style, same arched mirror on the wall. It was a couple's package suite, advertised for anniversaries and romantic getaways, not corporate conferences. I didn't tell her what I found. I didn't even confront her. Something in me had shifted by then. I no longer wanted answers from her. I just wanted the truth on my own terms, because I didn't trust her to tell it. I only trusted evidence. That's when I remembered the dog walking app. Jackson, our retriever, had gotten a little heavier after we both started working longer hours. We downloaded this fitness tracker-style app that mapped out every walk he took, distance, location, duration. Haley had insisted on it. She said it'd help keep him active and keep us accountable. We used it religiously for about a month. Then, like most things, we forgot. Or at least I did. That night I logged back into it. Just to see. Just to look. And there they were. 8 walks in a row. None of them starting from our neighborhood. Each one began at the same location. A residential street on the outskirts of town. Far enough away that it wouldn't be somewhere she'd go by chance. A cul-de-sac with only 6 homes. I copied the address into maps. The photos came up instantly. A white house, 2 stories, gray SUV in the driveway, clean lawn, small porch, big window in the front with white curtains. My heart thudded in my chest. The app had timestamps. Walks starting just after 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Some Friday afternoons. One Sunday morning when I thought she was at yoga. The longest one was nearly 2 hours. I stared at the data, feeling that same slow-motion dread I'd felt outside the cafe weeks ago. The next day, I drove out there. I didn't know what I was hoping to find. Proof, maybe. Closure. Or maybe just confirmation that I wasn't insane. That the person I thought I knew really had become someone else entirely. It was quiet. Suburban. No sidewalks. Just driveways and trimmed hedges and mailboxes with painted numbers. I parked half a block away and walked slowly, pretending to look at my phone. The gray SUV was there. Through the window, I could see movement. Haley's silhouette. She was standing in the kitchen, pouring something, coffee, maybe. She turned, said something I couldn't hear, and then he appeared. I recognized him instantly. The same man from the cafe. From the photo. Taller than me. Slim. Wearing the same kind of plain, fitted shirts Haley always used to say she liked on me, before she stopped complimenting me at all. He walked toward her and she laughed. Not a big laugh. Not loud. But familiar. And warm. Jackson barked, off-screen. Then he trotted into view, tail wagging, leash dragging behind him. She let him out the door, and the man bent down to scratch him behind the ears. Jackson licked his hand like he knew him, like it wasn't the first time, like he belonged there. My stomach dropped. That dog, our dog, was comfortable around him. Excited even, like he had done this before, like he was part of a routine, part of the system. And Haley, she wasn't nervous. She wasn't looking over her shoulder or keeping her distance. She was making coffee in his kitchen, laughing at his jokes, wearing one of those oversized hoodies she used to steal from me. This wasn't an affair in the shadows. This was a second life. I stood there until my legs started to go numb, then turned and walked back to the car. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Felt worse than that. Felt like being hollowed out with a slow, dull spoon. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the stories she told me that had started from lies. All the "I'm just helping a coworker" moments. All the "I'll walk Jackson this time" offers. All the "I need a little time for myself" explanations. It wasn't just about cheating. It was about everything she'd built behind my back. It was the structure of it, the coordination, the calculated, repeated choices. It wasn't impulsive. It was strategic. Every piece of the puzzle fit too perfectly for it to be a mistake. She had used our routines against me. She knew which nights I had late calls and which mornings I slept in. She knew when Jackson needed a walk and how long my commute would be. She had mapped out a schedule like a second calendar that I wasn't invited to. And this man, this Matt, he wasn't just someone she met at work and fell into something with. He was in the photos, in the dog's memory, in the walks, in the coffee, in the hoodie, in the details. He was part of the system she built to replace me. When she came home that Sunday, she tossed her bag on the couch and asked if I wanted Thai for dinner. Like nothing was different. Like I hadn't stood on a street corner hours earlier watching her pour coffee in someone else's kitchen. I looked at her for a long moment, studying her, not for guilt, but for distance. She smiled at me, the same smile she used with waiters and neighbors and coworkers. Polite, controlled, shallow. I already ate, I said. She nodded, pulled out her phone, and sank into the couch. Scrolling, probably texting him. I watched her fingers fly across the screen, and I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit. She wasn't coming back. Not really. Maybe physically. Maybe for appearances. But emotionally, spiritually, the version of her that had once picked out paint samples with me at the hardware store and argued about which dog bed matched the living room. She was gone. And I had no idea when she'd left. When I got back from the house, the white one on the edge of town, Haley was already gone. She must have been home just long enough to shower. The towel in the bathroom was damp. The bottle of shampoo she only used when she planned to reset herself was still uncapped on the ledge. No note, no text. Just the smell of her lavender lotion lingering like she had no reason to leave a trace. For the first hour, I sat at the kitchen table, just listening to the hum of the refrigerator. Jackson lay by my feet, confused. He sniffed around a bit, then curled into a ball like he knew I didn't have answers. By the second hour, she still hadn't called. No check-in. No hey, running errands. Just silence. The kind that makes you realize how much noise you had been mistaking for connection. It wasn't until the sun started dipping behind the trees that my phone rang. Her name lit up the screen, but I didn't answer right away. I let it ring, just to hear how long she'd let herself linger on the other end. I finally picked up. Hey, she said, her voice almost casual. I tried calling earlier. You didn't, I said. A pause. Well, I meant to. There was another pause. This one longer, heavier. You went to the house, didn't you? She asked. No emotion in her voice, just a flat accusation. You mean the one where you walk our dog and pour coffee in someone else's kitchen? I replied. Her breath caught for a split second. Then it was gone, replaced by calm. The same eerie calm she used when she was trying to control a meeting or defuse tension. I don't understand why you're checking up on me, she said. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't scared. She wasn't even trying to hide anymore. What she was offended. Like I was the one crossing a line. You weren't supposed to see that, she added. The words landed hard. Not I didn't mean for it to happen. Not I can explain. Just you weren't supposed to see that. Like it was an error in her execution, not her actions. I didn't yell. I didn't ask the questions burning inside me. Who is he? How long has it been? Why didn't you just leave? I just sat there, gripping the edge of the table. I saw you with him, I said. I saw how comfortable you looked. I saw how at home the dog was. I saw everything. Silence. I'm not trying to hurt you, she said finally. That made me laugh. Quiet, bitter. The kind of laugh that has no joy behind it. I'm not trying to hurt you, I repeated. You're just building an entirely separate life behind my back. One that includes my dog and my weekends and my wife. But sure, nothing hurtful about that. She didn't respond. The silence stretched between us. Heavy, cold. Then she sighed. I just need space right now, okay? I don't need surveillance. I don't need to be monitored. I wanted to scream, to shake her, to ask how she could possibly spin this into me being the problem. But I didn't, because I finally understood what she was doing. This wasn't panic. This wasn't a messy, emotional explosion. This was her realignment, her rewrite. She was editing the story before it even ended. You already made your choice, I said. That's not fair, she replied. It's not supposed to be, I told her. She paused again, then added, I'll come by tomorrow. I need to get a few things. And just like that, the conversation ended. I sat there long after the call disconnected, staring at the corner of the living room where our first plant had died last year. We'd laughed about it then, said it was a metaphor for how bad we were at being adults. Now, I wondered if it had been the first thing to die in this apartment. Before the communication, before the trust, before us. That night, I pulled out an old box from the closet, one we hadn't opened since the move. It was filled with paperwork, lease agreements, vet records, old tax documents. But under it all were scraps of what used to be us. Birthday cards, a note she left me on our second anniversary, ticket stubs from a concert we never finished because she had a migraine and we walked home holding hands in the rain. I didn't cry. I just sat with it, held the proof in my hands that once, she chose me. That once, she wrote, "Thank you for being my safest place," on the back of a diner receipt and taped it to the fridge. I watched from the doorway as she moved through the apartment, collecting things. A stack of books, her favorite sweater, a half-used bottle of perfume she'd left in the bathroom. Everything she touched with clinical precision. At one point, she looked at me. We stared at each other for a long moment. "Why didn't you just tell me?" I asked. She blinked. Her mouth opened, closed. Then she said, "Because you would have made it harder." "That's your excuse?" I asked. "That I would have reacted like someone who loved you?" "No," she said, "because you still see me as who I was. And I'm not her anymore." That silenced me, not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. And I realized something in that moment. She wasn't trying to hurt me because I wasn't in the frame anymore. Not really. She wasn't even playing a game. The game had ended. I was just still standing on the field, waiting for the whistle. She wasn't hiding. She was done hiding. The real cruelty wasn't in the affair. It wasn't even in the lie. It was in the way she walked away from everything we'd built. Quietly, neatly, and without guilt. She packed the last of her things into a box, closed it, looked around like someone checking out of a hotel. Then she said, "I'll text you about the rest," and walked out. No apology, no tears, no goodbye. I stood there for a long time, staring at the door. Then I walked over, locked it, and leaned against it until my legs gave out. I didn't rage. I didn't throw things. I didn't beg. I just existed. In the quiet, in the wreckage, in the silence that wasn't punishment, but proof that the war was already over. After she left, I started cleaning. Not out of anger, just instinct. Her drawer was half empty. A few hangers still holding the ghost shapes of shirts she didn't bother to pack. I found an old USB drive in the back of our desk drawer, one we hadn't used since before the move. When I plugged it into my laptop, it was like opening a time capsule from someone I didn't recognize. Inside was a folder labeled simply Variant. It was a list, 20 bullet points, plain text, no emotion, just actions, separate insurance, cancel shared streaming accounts, change delivery address, leave the dog if he stays in the house, request lease transfer, don't tell mom right away, move plants last. No Dear Eli. No explanation, just logistics. A silent checklist of her exit laid out like a business plan. Efficient, emotionless. She hadn't left in a storm. She'd evacuated. Quietly, strategically. I realized then that she had made peace with leaving long before she ever walked out the door. I sat there staring at that list and I finally understood. This was never about passion or confusion or even Matt. This was about replacement. Not escape. A week later, I met her one last time, just to return a box of things, letters, books, old photos. We didn't meet inside. We sat in separate cars, parked side by side outside her new place. I asked, "Do you regret it?" She didn't flinch. "I tried to talk to you," she said. "You just didn't hear me." There was no cruelty in her voice, just clarity. "First I disappeared inside myself," she added. "Then from our life." I handed her the box. She nodded like it was closure. I didn't say goodbye. Just got out, walked to my car, and drove. Now I run again in the evenings. Cook alone. I write my sister back. I sit in silence and it doesn't scare me anymore. I'm alone. But this time on purpose.